All right, you are back to Managing Midlife with Dr. Patty on WLVS Radio. Tuned into www at listenvisionlive.com. So tonight, my featured interview is with Mr. Pete Little, who is the executive director of the Baltimore City Parking Authority. And we're going to air an interview that I had the pleasure of being able to speak with him about an initiative that is co-sponsored by the Baltimore City Parking Authority and the Mayor's Commission on Disabilities called Project Space. And also with the support of the Baltimore City Department of Transportation and the Downtown Partnership of Baltimore and other key stakeholders. And Project Space is an effort or an initiative which seeks to increase availability of on-street parking in Baltimore City. And we're going to talk, Mr. Little and I are going to talk about that initiative and how it has been rolled out in Baltimore City. And there are other cities that are also have taken on this initiative, including Washington, D.C. will soon be taking the initiative as well with Project Space or a similar type project. And so I admonish you to listen attentively tonight as we talk more about Project Space.
All right, so we have Mr. Pete Little, who is joining us today. He is the executive director for the Parking Authority of Baltimore City, and we are going to be doing an interview in reference to an initiative called Project Space that is co-sponsored by the Parking Authority of Baltimore City and the Mayor's Commission on Disabilities. And first, again, Mr. Little, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on Managing Midlife with Dr. Patty. I want to start off just at the beginning. If you could talk a little bit about the inception of Project Space and the main reasons for why this initiative was launched in the first place.
Sure, absolutely. Well, as you probably know, the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed by the federal government in 1990 in order to ensure that people with disabilities are not discriminated against, for employment, for government services, public accommodations, etc. And the law then increased access to businesses, entertainment services for people with disabilities. At that time in 1990, the parking meters that were in service, not just here in Baltimore, but across the country, were the old type of meters that have the little crank knob in the front of them in order to record your payment. And, of course, back in 1990, you could only pay with coins
Right.
at parking meters. Because of that crank action on those meters, they were not accessible. They were determined to not meet the guidelines under the Americans with Disabilities Act for accessibility. And so Baltimore City and all other municipalities across the country adopted a policy of allowing people with disabilities to park for free because the meters themselves were not accessible. And so for several decades, the city has had the policy of allowing free parking for people displaying a disability placard or a disability license plate. Unfortunately, as more and more people learned that this was the case, the abuse of especially the disability placards began to grow and grow and grow. And actually the theft of disability placards here in Baltimore City grew and grew and grew to the extent that as of just a few years ago, when we have the complete data on it, over 1,800 disability placards were either stolen or reported as lost here in Baltimore City. And that number has been growing every year. And people have been then using or abusing those disability placards to be able to park on street here at parking meters for free. And what that's done is to cause a real parking problem here in Baltimore City, because so many people were abusing disability placards in order to park all day on the streets in downtown Baltimore and in the other neighborhoods where we have parking meters.
Right.
It left no space available for other people to be able to park, and that would be patrons of businesses, visitors to museums or to other attractions here in the city, and anyone else who wanted to come, for any sort of a short-term visit here to the city. They couldn't find available on-street parking, had to pay generally higher rates, especially for the shorter-term stays here.
Right.
And it has created additional traffic congestion as people look for parking spaces that aren't there on street. And so we've worked hard with Mayor's Commission on Disabilities to come up with a plan, this plan for Project Space, which reserves about 10% of the on-street parking spaces for people with disabilities. At those reserved spaces, we've installed single-space parking meters that are that fully meet the Americans with Disabilities Act guidelines and are actually highly accessible. And by that we mean they're set down even a little bit lower, so they're even easier to use for people who are in wheelchairs or in scooters as well. And so we've reserved those spaces. We've made sure that our other parking meters, the multi-space parking meters that we've installed over the years, meet all of the current ADA guidelines as well too. And now everyone pays for parking, but the parkers with disabilities have these reserved spaces as well too for their use.
So can the individuals who still have the handicap accessible markers, are they still able to utilize those, or does that now go away with the inception of this program, and now individuals who do have the disability are now required to park in these spaces, and do they still need to have proof of that, meaning the marker or their license plate tag?
Well, in order to use those reserved parking spaces that are reserved for parkers with disabilities, they must display a disability placard or a disability plate on their vehicle. And actually, as we've gone out and monitored the program in Phase 1, and we just introduced Phase 1, which is in the downtown area here, in the middle of July, the middle of last month. The great majority of the vehicles that are parked in those reserved spaces are displaying a disability placard or a disability plate to doing exactly, that they are, in fact, parkers with disabilities. In a few circumstances, I've seen that there are vehicles that do not display a disability placard or a plate on them, and those vehicles have been ticketed, and it's a substantial fine for parkers who park in those reserved spaces and do not have a disability. A $502 citation, as a matter of fact. So yes, you still do need to have that placard or plate in order to park in those particular spaces.
And the implications are similar to if you parked in a handicapped space and did not have had the marker or the handicap display in your sign, the citation or the fine would be justifiably just as much or more in those instances where individuals have done that or do that.
Yes. Yep. So yeah, even in other public spaces that may be off-street parking spaces, you can get that same citation or that same fine for parking in a space that's reserved for parkers with disabilities, and if you don't have that placard or plate. But what this program has done is to then remove that incentive to abuse disability placards and plates, because now, at least within Phase 1, which again is the downtown area, everyone is required to pay for parking, but we have reserved these, and it's over 200 parking spaces downtown for parkers with disabilities.
And how many cities are across the nation are participating in a program like this or similar?
Yep. About a dozen cities altogether right now, from Seattle to Portland to Chicago to Washington, D.C. will be starting their program soon. They put together a pilot program several years ago, but then they are going back at it again. Arlington County in Virginia has had a similar program for many years now as well. So there are cities across the country that are introducing programs that are at least similar, if not identical, to the program that we have here. And what has allowed that is advances in parking meter technologies and technologies that now meet the Americans with Disabilities Act guidelines for the accommodation.
Excellent. So I guess my next question is, where is the project today? Actually, you've already spoken to it a little bit in that you've done work through a pilot and testing phase in the Baltimore City downtown area. And then in terms of outreach and inroads to the community, how is that being rolled out, and then the oversight, I guess, of the existing program. And let me just say this, because I know that I heard it on the radio in passing, just driving my kids to school one day, and I was like, okay, well, what, I didn't really catch everything, but I was like, okay, I know it's a new project. I know it has to do with parking. Okay, what is this? And that's the extent to which I kind of caught wind of what was happening. So if you could just expound a little bit more on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's the program started in phase one, which is, as I mentioned before, the downtown area, and the geographic boundaries are Franklin Street to the north, and Pratt and Light and Key Highway to the south, President Street to the east, and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard to the west are the boundaries for phase one of the core downtown area there. And it initiated on the middle of July 10th, as a matter of fact, with an announcement from the mayor about the program. But prior to that, we'd been working with the Mayor's Commission on Disabilities for several years on designing the program, and then meeting also with dozens of groups that represent people with disabilities as well, too, to describe the outline of the program to them, to get feedback so that we could massage the program based on the feedback that we did receive from people who were parts of those organizations that represent people with disabilities. And then furthermore, we met with, obviously we had, we're keeping the mayor's office informed, but met several times with city council members as well, too, and received feedback from them. And on top of that, we did get to learn from other cities as they started to roll out these other programs, and learn from them what aspects of the program worked and what aspects of the program, their programs, did not work. And one of the things that we learned, that it was very important to have a good public education program, and not one that was just based on a few public service announcements, but one that involved hiring a good public relations and public education firm to help us to get the word out about it, and to actually buy media spots in order to place ads in order to get the word out about this. And so for months ahead of time, we worked with a public relations firm to get the word out about the program. But radio spots, you probably heard one of those radio spots on a number of radio stations, had billboards, placed ads online, on the Baltimore Sun's front page for several weeks as well, too. And worked hard to get the word out there through whatever means we could. and through those organizations as well too that represent people with disabilities. So we worked very hard, and the Mayor's Commission on Disabilities was very helpful in helping us to get the word out about the program. And the feedback that we've received from Parkers is that yes, they did find out about the program, and we're continuing with that program as well too. And then appearing on radio shows, and that I have to thank you for allowing me to be on your show as well, because it's again very helpful in getting the word out about the program.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that my viewership and listening audience, our goal is to educate and inform the community, and not just in Baltimore, because through internet radio, it goes out abroad, and so other cities as well may be watching and considering. I mean, there's 12 now, but as more cities begin to interact, engage, and see the success of the program, I'm sure the interest will increase, and as those stakeholders and groups become more aware and their voices heard, I'm sure that this will will grow. So with that, how would you like, or how do you see the community being able to get involved to support and to help kind of champion this project, or try to support this initiative?
Sure. Well, in several ways. Number one, by helping to get the word out to people with disabilities. So if any of your listeners are people with disabilities, or they have relatives or friends who have disabilities as well too, if they can get the word out about this program, because it's important that they know now that if they come to downtown Baltimore, there are on-street spaces reserved for their use. And, we'd love to see, and we are already seeing, even just 1 month into the program for Phase 1, good use of those reserved spaces, the spaces that are reserved for parkers with disabilities. But we'd love to see even more use. So, although we've spent a great deal of time working with organizations representing people with disabilities, and through all of the paid media that we've had to get the word out, there is still availability of those parking spaces. So, if folks can help us to continue to get the word out there that that parking on street is now accessible, and
right.
The parking meters are now accessible, and furthermore, there are spaces reserved for people for parkers with disabilities near the aquarium, in the Inner Harbor, and near the major hospitals that are downtown, and near the museums and the other attractions that are downtown, near the businesses and restaurants that are downtown. That would be terrific.
Right.
And then to also get the word out that that the abuse of the disability placards is no longer acceptable. Hasn't been acceptable, but now there's no reason to continue to abuse those disability placards. So there's no reason to steal them as well too, or to abuse them.
There's no benefit in that.
That's right.
So we want to discourage that type of behavior. Absolutely, and I think that that's also great in terms of tourism, people who are coming to our city, and I know for some time I worked in the hospitality business, and so people need to be able to know that in terms of resources and things that are available to them, especially when they're coming to see the various attractions. I know that the downtown area especially is big on, a lot of people ask about the Inner Harbor. They ask about the aquarium. If they're going to the ballpark for the games, a lot of times the question comes up about parking. How is the park? What's the parking situation? Downtown, and so absolutely, I think that it just adds value to our city, and it draws and attracts, another group of people who want to be able to enjoy those benefits of what Baltimore City has to offer. And I think that we have
Absolutely.
a lot of things to offer.
Yep. And it may not be your listener themselves that is the person with a disability, but it may be their mom or their dad or their brother or their sister who, they may have thought about coming downtown in the past and with their mom or dad or their brother or their sister or whomever, and said to themselves, you know what, trying to find parking downtown that will help to accommodate that visit for my mom or my dad or my brother or my sister is just too difficult.
Right.
Now it opens the doors to them being able to consider doing that, and and we would appreciate any feedback that your listeners may have as well too, to the.
All right. So here we are. We're back, and I was so honored and grateful to be able to have the interview with Mr. Little and to talk about Project Space. And certainly you can visit their website at www.morespace for all. That's www.morespace for all if you would like more information about Project Space and the initiatives that's going on in Baltimore, and also to get information about what's going on in other cities and the events as it relates to that. But absolutely a wonderful thing, and I admonish you to take the time and read about the statistics and read about the facts, and they've taken the great strides to put this together and to create a viable program for individuals with disabilities. So I'm out of time. Wow. This show goes so fast. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, listen, very quickly, if you want to promote your business on Dr. Patty Live, if your target audience is persons from the ages of 35 to 55, and you're looking to make people aware of your business, or you want to expand your potential customer base to our on-air viewing audience, you may want to drive traffic to your location or your social media and web pages, or you may just want to promote yourself as a leader or subject matter expert in your profession or field of expertise, or you may be having an event. And you may want to promote that event like a sale or open house. Maybe you just released a book or you're having a conference. And if you're not doing any of those things, maybe you just want to talk about some important news or issues, or provide tips to our listening audience. If you're a financial expert, if you're a health and wellness expert, or maybe you're a credit expert, or maybe you're an exercise expert. I mean, we could go the gamut with all of the levels of expertise that we have out there. But anyway, let us help you bring out the personality, or let us help you bring out the personality that drives your business. Visit our website at www.drpattycares.com for additional information. I'm out of time, but I just want to tell you that tonight's show has been brought to you by drum roll. Who has it been brought to you by? The Midlife Resource Center, helping men and women navigate through the challenges of their midlife transition. And so I encourage you to visit the website at www.managemidlife.com. That's www.managemidlife.com. I'm out of time. That's all, folks. I'll see you next week. That's it. That's it. That's it.